Good evening. This is going to be a very quick show. This is about football rivalries and do they lose their importance over the years or in the seasons. So, let's talk about rivalries. Every league in the world, to be honest, needs rivalries to stand out from the average game. These matches are what the fans look forward to at the release of the fixtures at the beginning of any campaign. They are the highlight of most seasons for those fans, and it is just more than a stake of the game. It's bragging rights. So, bragging rights in your local area, especially if you support local teams. So yeah, it for me it's an interesting talking point. It's going to be a quick show. It's going to be quickly talking into all the 20 EPL teams, rivals, and obviously talking about the biggest ones that we've got in our own league. So let's get into Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth, you wouldn't think necessarily have rivals. They do. They have Southampton, they have Portsmouth, Brighton, and for some bizarre reason, Reading. Now, the reason I found this out, there was a 2019 study done with the fans, which is called the League of Love and Hate. You can even look it up and find out about it, and it's an interesting read, I have to say. Big up to Errol in the house and Chris saying if it was F1 rivalries, it's Ferrari versus Ferrari. Exactly, their own worst enemy, aren't they? But yeah, so I don't understand the Reading one. If any Bournemouth fans watch this back and can let me know why Reading is one of your rivals, please let me know. I'd love to know. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Arsenal. Now I've actually got percentages of who voted for who. Paxton, okay, this is turning into an F1 show now. Paxton saying, I never expect Ferrari to win a constructors title. Not for the next 5 years, I wouldn't have thought. But Arsenal, we got, so out of all the fans that were asked, this doesn't add up to 100%, just so you know, because it's not going to make much sense. But 87% said Tottenham. Well, that's the biggest rivalry. Then it was United. Then it was Chelsea. Then it was Stoke City. Then it was Liverpool. Why? I don't know. We're going to Aston Villa. Theirs is Birmingham, West Bromwich Albion, Wolves, Manchester United, and then Coventry. Now, obviously, 4 of those, unless you don't know geographical parts of England, Birmingham, Wolves, West Brom and Coventry, all in the West Midlands, so it's a kind of a West Midlands derby, so they're understandable. Now, Brentford have only got 2 big rivals. Good evening, GMS LTD. Hope you're doing well. Brentford have only got Fulham and QPR as their big rivalries. Now, it's a little bit interesting that Chelsea's not in there, being a West London club, but it is what it is. These are all the facts I've found today. Going to Brighton. Now, I know there's a strange one with the Brighton and Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace, 85% voted Palace as their biggest rivalries. And the next one down is a massive 50% drop to Portsmouth. And then Southampton, Bournemouth. And again, I don't know what's wrong. What the problem is with Brighton and Manchester United, but there is one, because 18% said Manchester United are a rivalry to Brighton. Now, it doesn't really make sense, but Paxton, being a United fan, might understand that for me. I don't. I was finding some of these study quite interesting, to be honest. Paxton saying here, historical thing from the years when both Reading and Bournemouth spent a lot of time in tiers 3 and 4. Okay, so it's probably match rivalries. It's just ended up being a bigger thing. Chelsea weren't part of this study for some bizarre reason, but it is well documented that Arsenal, Tottenham and United are all 3 massive rivals. Then we go into Crystal Palace, and again, Brighton is their number one. I don't know what the issue is. It's something to do with a road. I don't know. If anyone can tell me, please do, because it doesn't make much sense. They're not close. And then it's Millwall, Charlton, Watford, and then once again, Manchester United are there once again. It amazes me how many teams do not like Manchester United. We move into Everton. Obviously, doesn't surprise you or anybody that Liverpool are the main rivals, followed by Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, and then Newcastle. Again, don't know why. I just thought these were interesting facts. Well, there you go. Paxton's never seen Brighton as a rival, nor do I. But for some reason, 18% of Brighton fans voted that Manchester United were a rival to them. Don't understand why. Bit crazy for me. Fulham, it's Chelsea, QPR, Brentford, and Palace, all being that kind of area of London. Not to surprise me once again. Then we move into Leeds, Manchester United being number one, then Chelsea, then Millwall, Huddersfield, and then Derby. No idea why about some of those, but there we go. I'm guessing Leeds and Millwall is probably like a 1970s, 80s situation going on there. Then we got Leicester. That was Nottingham Forest, Derby, Coventry, Aston Villa, and for some reason, Tottenham. Tottenham just sprung in there on 32% of fans voting for them. Then we go into Liverpool. I will be talking more about at least 6 of these big rivalries, which are the biggest ones in our league now, with a bit more depth. But these are just the rivalries for each club, just being fair to everyone here. So yeah, Liverpool got United, Chelsea, Manchester City, Everton, and then Arsenal. Manchester City, their number one rival is Liverpool. Manchester United, Tottenham, Chelsea, and then Arsenal. And Paxton here, even searching Brighton versus Manchester United rival, everyone is talking about. I have literally no idea. I might have to like research it and get back on this story because I was quite interested. This was only 3 years ago this study was done. So, and it was a proper study of talking to fans all over the country. And it just amazed me that United were there. I don't know why. I don't know the history, to be honest. Let's go into Manchester United. Liverpool are their number one rivals, followed by Manchester City, then Chelsea, then Leeds, then Arsenal. Newcastle, their number one rivals are Sunderland, followed by Middlesbrough, Liverpool, United, and then Aston Villa. Don't know where that one just came from. Nottingham Forest, they've got Derby, Leicester, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, and Leeds. I'm guessing that's more of a geographical thing again. Southampton, Portsmouth is their number one rivals. I think they had the highest percentage of 91% of their fans saying it was Portsmouth, followed by Bournemouth, Brighton, Reading again are in there. I really don't understand this Reading situation because Bournemouth and Southampton both voted for Reading, and then Tottenham. Then we go into Tottenham. Tottenham voted Arsenal first, then Chelsea, then West Ham, then Liverpool, and then once again Manchester United. Manchester United are not a like team. West Ham voted for Tottenham being the number one, then Millwall, then Chelsea, then United once again, and then Liverpool, and then Wolves. They voted for more sensible options, geographical. West Bromwich, Albion, Aston Villa, Birmingham, Coventry, and Stoke. Now, for a time, you don't need to see me now because I am going to talk about the biggest rivalries and a little bit of information about why they are as big as they are. So And before I do that, just because we went over, it could well be, mate. It could well be. I do apologise if I don't see any comments for a bit because I'm going to be reading some information. So I do apologise. Let's just get into the first picture, which I did put up there. Now I can't find it. There we go. So I'm pretty sure you can still hear me. So the biggest rivalry in English football has always and will be between England's two most successful clubs, Liverpool and Manchester United. This rivalry has spanned across decades that can be traced back to the 19th century. It is a rivalry between two cities that started over economic and industrial differences. Liverpool was England's main port at the time, and so charged the city of Manchester incredible taxes for access to the sea. Manchester then built their canal that would go through Liverpool to give them the feeling of superiority over them. This is why there is a boat on the United and Manchester City crests. This was where the rivalry began between the two cities, although their first match against each other was played in 1894. Their footballing rivalry didn't take off until the 1960s. So the rivalry there is obviously more deeper than football. But obviously Liverpool took hold of English football in the 1960s with the introduction of Bill Shankly that would lead to almost 2 decades of dominance. Once Matt Busby departed Manchester United, they struggled during this period and didn't redeem themselves until Sir Alex Ferguson's appointment in 1986. This was a turning point in the future of both clubs that no one saw coming. Liverpool's success dried up and Manchester United took off for the next 30 years. The competitiveness to be the best club in England was a driving factor in the hatred between the two clubs, although both clubs have their local derby. Due to Everton and Manchester City's until recently struggles, this match is given greater importance. No Manchester United fan wants to see Liverpool be successful, and no Liverpool fan wants to see United be successful. It is a rivalry that, like no other in English football, no matter what team is facing both clubs, rival fans will cheer on the opposition. To go from one of these clubs to the other is seen as sinful and unheard of. No player since Phil Chisnell in 1964 has been transferred directly between the clubs, as it was this period saw the beginning of their rivalry. Michael Owen and Paul Ince are the only two players to have played for both clubs in the Premier League era, a grudge that is still held against them into their retirement. The matches between the two have been feisty and electric throughout the years. Fans even have their own chants for one another. It is the biggest rivalry in English football and up there with the biggest in the world. So that's the Liverpool United rivalry. Let's get into the Arsenal Tottenham rivalry. If it wants to show me here, it's really not helping me today. There we go. Sorry, StreamYard is just not being helpful. So Arsenal Tottenham. The North London derby is one of the oldest and fiercest derbies in England. The battle for supremacy in North London has been long-standing between Tottenham and Arsenal. The first recorded match between the two clubs can be dated back to 1887. It wasn't until Arsenal moved to Highbury, North London, just 4 miles away, in 1913, that set the rivalry between the two clubs alight. This was a move that was opposed by Tottenham, which now saw Arsenal become their closest rivals. Further fuel was added to the rivalry in 1919 when the league was to be expanded by 2 clubs via a vote. Chelsea and Tottenham were the favourites to get the nod, with Chelsea in 19th getting the first spot. Tottenham, who was in 20th, lost the vote to Arsenal, who only finished 5th in the second division. They lost their place in the first division and were replaced by their rivals. This infuriated all involved with the club and thus begun the rivalry. There have been a total of over 200 games played between the two clubs, with Arsenal coming out on top with the only season since the 1950s where the two teams were not in the same division was 1978 to 78, 1977 to 78. Arsenal have always had bragging rights in this fixture due to their success on the trophy front. Gloating between both sets of fans is something that we are used to seeing at these matches, no matter the occasion. It is never a friendly encounter between the two clubs, as both desperately want to beat the other. In 2017, Spurs finally broke a 22-year spell, finishing below Arsenal in the league. Only 8 players have ever played for both clubs in North London derby history, with Jimmy Robertson and Emmanuel Adebayor the only players to have scored for both in the derby. Is a bold move to make, which have not seen in quite some time. North London is red for now, but don't tell that to a Spurs fan. So that is the Arsenal-Tottenham rivalry. Now, StreamYards wants me to be sensible here. Probably not. No, probably not. There we go. The next rivalry is the Newcastle versus Sunderland rivalry. This famous rivalry is classed as a Tyne-Wear derby. It is one of the English football's fiercest rivalries, with 11 miles separating them in the northeast of England. It has been an area in decline for quite some time, with the loss and closure of steelworks, shipyards, and docks, leading to a rise in unemployment. One thing that they didn't lose is their passion for football, and they are known nationally as some of the most loyal and passionate fans in England. The rivalry between both cities traces back to the 17th century, when royalist forces were pitted against parliamentary ones. This split both cities, as Newcastle took to the royalists and Sunderland were pro-parliamentarian. They would always find themselves on opposite sides when it came to politics. This opposing of one another would be taken into the football world. The first match between the two clubs was in 1888, and since then both clubs have split for bragging rights, with both having 53 victories apiece and 50 draws. It is one of the most intense affairs, as it is a rivalry that splits both families and friends in the area. They haven't met each other since 2016, but no doubt fans will be chomping at the bit to face their bitter rivals again. There have been multiple occasions of outbreaks and violence occurring at these games due to the nature of the fixture and the passion and hatred involved. They are not clubs that are often associated with success in recent history, although Sunderland still holds the bragging rights with 6 league titles to Newcastle's 4. It is a rival that is missed in the Premier League, and we look forward to see it one day again. And obviously, adding to this, obviously Newcastle have become the richest club in the world now. So, if Sunderland do manage, they are in the Championship now. So if Sunderland do manage to get to the Premier League, I think that rival will be back. But I think Sunderland fans will be walking away probably losing that a little bit more than others will. Okay, so now we're going to move into the Manchester City. If it's going to let me do this on the StreamYard, is being so silly today. There we go. Manchester City versus Manchester United rivalry. Okay, the Manchester derbies need no introduction, as it is one of the most famous derbies in football. The history of both these clubs is genuinely unique, and their first meeting against each other was 1881, except they went under different names at this time. United were known as Newton Heath, while City went by St. Mark's, St. Marker or West Gorton. The grounds are separated by 4 miles, and it is another example where families are split in support of the two clubs. The rivalry was not as hostile back then, as it was seen as just 2 local clubs making their way in the English game. But that has recently changed. United have always been the dominant team in this fixture, and therefore been the dominant team in Manchester. It wasn't until the 2010s that Man City began to challenge in this fixture to become more than just their noisy neighbours that Sir Alex once coined them. The fixtures became closer and closer as City grew more potent by the year. Their most famous triumph over their rivals came when they dramatically sealed their first league title. Sergio Aguero's last-minute goal pipped United to the title and gave City their first taste of league success in 44 years. This was to be the turning point for the blue side of Manchester. Since then, they have only grown stronger. The rivalry stepped up a notch, as it was now United's turn to watch City win the silverware. This derby is more significant now than ever, with City finally being respected as a real rival in the sense of challenging for trophies. They weren't for so long. Pep Guardiola has taken this team to the next level and are currently miles ahead of United following Ferguson's departure. So, what colour do you think Manchester is now? Do you still think it's red, or do you still think that it's now blue? Obviously, I'm not having a dig at Manchester United, just so anyone knows. Yeah, Moss, this is just about the EPL, though, mate. Yeah, this is just EPL ones. That's why I've put Premier League rivalries. It's just about the Premier League today. But yeah, there's so many rivalries all over the world. Massive ones, definitely in South America and Italy and in Spain, and they're just everywhere, to be honest. But this is just about EPL today. So now we're going to get into Liverpool. It will always be red, says Paxton. I'll only say what you want to say. I personally don't care. Not that one. Let's get into the Liverpool-Everton rivalry, which is the next one. It's not letting me do this very easily today. There we go. Liverpool-Everton. Okay, the rivalry between Liverpool and Everton goes way beyond just football. Goodison Park and Anfield are only a mile apart on either side of Stanley Park. The support for both these clubs divides families, friends, and every other social aspect in the city. It is the longest running top flight derby in England that has seen both teams face each other every season since 1962. Their first meeting between the clubs was in 1894, and they have met each other over 230 times since. While it was traditionally referred to as the Friendly Derby, that name would soon change come the 1980s. The glory days for both clubs in the 1980s saw their rivalry intensify like never before. They were both battling for league titles and cups, and their matches against each other held great importance to this success. It is a derby match that has seen more red cards than any other game. Anfield was the original home of Everton before several board members left to create another club that would become Liverpool FC. Both clubs took the short trip across Stanley Park to swap stadiums, and the rest is history. The city of Liverpool is statistically the most successful in England. Both clubs have had their fair share of success, but Everton have always been in the shadow of their neighbours when it comes down to it. With Liverpool recent triumphs in both England and Europe, they are breaking further away from their rivals and leaving this fixture to be a bragging rights affair more than anything else. So yeah, that's that one. Moss saying here, Northeast Derby, Borough versus Newcastle Magpies. It's definitely Newcastle versus Sunderland. If you want to skip back a little bit, I did talk about the Newcastle Sunderland. It's massive, deep rooted. What is Chelsea's? Chelsea's. I'll just recap for you, Chip Moss, because you can go back and I did go through every club in the Premier League. Chelsea, their main rivals are Arsenal, Tottenham, and Manchester United. But Fulham's not even on there. Merseyside derby being good. It's been a great derby, that one, personally. So we're going to get into the final big derby, so they say. And it's not going to surprise me, and it's not going to surprise Moss being an Arsenal fan. It's probably not going to surprise Paxton either. It's this one. The Arsenal versus Manchester United. Two of the biggest clubs in English football at separate ends of the country produced one of the greatest unexpected rivalries the Premier League has ever seen. The first meeting between the clubs was back in 1894, while they were almost always in the same league since 1919. It wasn't really until the 1990s that the rivalry truly ignited, with Arsene Wenger taking over Arsenal and Alex Ferguson at United. It was a battle that would push both managers to become the best the game has ever seen. Confrontations on the pitch were something that became common in this fixture. Each game was more anticipated than the last, with both clubs going for domestic success season after season. There's been a total of over 230 meetings between the clubs, but their matches between 1996 and 2005 were seen as truly iconic. Both clubs vied for domestic trophies and were almost unchallenged by other clubs. It was a two-horse race with both managers wanting to win at all costs. The rivalry only heated up at the turn of the millennium, with incidents like tunnel bust-ups and on-field brawls becoming a part of this fixture. The legendary battles between Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira had everyone looking forward to this game and are still talked about to this day. Arsenal, iconic invincible seasons, gave their fans the bragging rights for a time. This unbeaten run was eventually ended by United, which only added to the already intense rivalry. Both clubs underwent a transition from 2005 onwards as Jose Mourinho's Chelsea ended their dominance in the league. It is a fixture that still whets the appetite to this day. And it is true. It hasn't changed for so long. It probably isn't going to. Exactly. Now Chelsea, Fulham class Chelsea as a rival, but it's not the other way around. Chelsea fans did not think that Fulham were rivals. So Fulham fans class them as rivals, but that is it. So yeah, they are the 6 biggest rivalries in the EPL. Obviously Sunderland aren't there, but Newcastle are, so it was worth talking about. Obviously I've gone through all 20 EPL rivals for all the clubs. Must hit Paxton saying it's rivalries, but it's still great. It is still great. It's a game that we all look out for, and especially on the fixtures. Kind of Moss likes the Brighton Valley. Yeah, that one I don't get. Still don't get it. Doesn't make much sense to me. But guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to talk about what's coming up on the channel for the week that I can remember. So in 30 minutes, the Man United agenda will be streaming to this channel tonight, talking about United stuff. Tomorrow it will be FPL chat. Wednesday, Oliver will be doing his mullet show. Thursday and Friday, don't think there's anything planned as of yet, mainly because there's a massive weekend coming up. 4 watch-alongs. Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham, Wolves, the Manchester Derby, and Leeds are playing Aston Villa. All watch-alongs will be here on FTSN. Also, Red Zone will be not on here. It will be on Moss's channel, but we'll be involved in that as always. Moss might be doing Dolphins versus the Bengals on Thursday night, depending on work situation and stuff. That will be streaming here on Thursday night. Tony might do a preview for the NFL this weekend, but yeah, as far as I know, that's all I can. Red Zone will definitely be on. Will be on Moss's channel because we'll be streaming, doing a watch long on his channel. On this channel, we won't be able to do the link up. But what I would suggest, if anyone wants to watch the Red Zone this Sunday, go and watch. Tune into Footmoss Sports Talk. He'll be doing Red Zone on there. Because we're doing watch longs on this one, so as far as I'm aware, you're not allowed to do 2 streams at the same time. But must talk about the Bengals, Miami Thursday, quick turnaround, yikes. But guys, I will be seeing you tomorrow on the Armory, which will be a North London derby preview. Chat really, not the preview for the game, but just a chat about North London derby. A couple of interesting questions on there. But for now, thank you all very much for tuning in. Get into the comments if you've got any questions or if you know any details about why some of these teams are rivals to other teams, like why United one of the most hated teams in the EPL according to fans. They class them as rivals when they're nowhere near them. But yeah, let me know if you know, because I'd love to read them all. But right now, I am definitely out of here. Take care, everyone.